Welcome to the Properties to Profit podcast. I'm Michael, your host. Excited to share with you my journey from a six-figure job to building a successful real estate business. Each episode will explore various aspects of real estate investing, from wholesaling and flipping to managing rentals. I'll share the lessons and insights I've gained, aiming to help you avoid mistakes and achieve your financial goals. Expect guest experts, valuable tips, and practical advice to guide you on your own real estate journey. Thank you for tuning in. If you find any value in this podcast, please subscribe, share, and follow me on social media. Let's turn properties into profits together. Hey guys, Michael here with Properties to Profit. And today I want to take the time and talk about managing salespeople. It's one of the most difficult things I've ever done, and I'm having challenges doing it because I'm not doing what I know I need to do. And I want to talk to you guys about it and maybe share some examples and lessons I've learned managing salespeople in the last 18 months or so. In my life, prior to starting my wholesaling business and real estate business, I had managed salespeople a couple times in my landscaping business, but nothing to the extent of where it is now. I pretty much told them, go out, do the work. Here's a couple word tracks, and never really touched back in with them. I thought that salespeople just always had it and they'd always figure it out. Boy, have I been so wrong in that. And I want to teach you a couple key lessons I have learned managing salespeople in the 2 years, give or take, that I've had them. So when I first started hiring salespeople, I thought, okay, I've got the leads. I just need bodies to talk to them and they're going to close these deals. Oh boy, was I wrong. And I hope you guys can learn from these lessons. So I started out hiring people, and the first mistake I made is when hiring someone, I started out hiring anyone who raised their hand. And that is such a terrible thing. So that was mistake one. I did that for my first 2 or 3 reps, I think, here at the real estate business, and they just weren't working out. And it's because they weren't salespeople. They weren't designed to be salespeople. They didn't like the work of actually listening to people and talking. They thought sales was just talking to people. But they were also afraid to make calls to people. Like, what if they don't want to talk to me? Man, that is not the right person in sales. So how I fix that is now we have a 5-step interview process, okay? So we take them through a screening process, then a PI, and not that the PI is all be it, but they're going to fall to whatever their PI is. If there's someone who is high energy, all of that, that's what they're going to fall to. That's their standards. Now, could that change at some point in their life? I do believe so, but it's probably not going to happen in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If they're unorganized, man, they're probably great salespeople, right? We are notoriously not organized. So we started doing that. That's our step 2. Step 3 is we bring them in for an interview, make sure we check them out, make sure we like them. And then at the end of that interview, if things go well, we send them out to our sales room. They sit there for a half hour to an hour just so they can hear some conversations, how the room feels. And what we're really doing is checking in to make sure that our current staff kind of vibes with them. Culture is so important here, and we want them to really fit in. And if they don't, man, if it's not a yes from everyone, we're probably moving on. Then from there, if everything checks out, we bring them back in for another interview. We also set up to get them on a call with a seller. We just want to see how they talk to someone after just spending 3 to 5 minutes going over the script. And then we want to give them feedback in the moment. See how they handle that feedback. So many people do not handle feedback well, and they're not coachable. You have to be coachable. And then from there, it's bringing them in one more time just to go over everything, run down everything, and just make sure we're shuffling out anything else. And in that meantime, we have also called all of their references just to make sure there's nothing out there. And we also tell them, hey, we want a bad reference because we all have one, and we want to see if they're going to come with one. And so that's what we do now before we bring them on. And it really weeds a lot of people out. And people are like, what if you can't find anyone? Well, here's what I've found. Whatever your mindset is what you attract. So if you believe you're not going to find anyone because you're doing all those steps to find the right people, then you're probably right. But if you believe that this is going to weed out the bad people and make sure that you're not training someone for 30, 60, 90 days, and then they leave, that's what's going to happen. So I really want you to focus on that, okay? Next thing I learned is You got to onboard them correctly once they're here. You got to spend time with them and coach them and be patient with them. A lot of times they've never sold real estate. They don't know much about a house, and it's amazing what they miss at a house. We think as the business owner they should know everything, but that's not true. It is so difficult to do this industry, and there's so much to learn. So you have to have a huge onboarding process and set up 30, 60, and 90-day expectations, and then continuing resetting those expectations so they know what to do going forward. Okay, guys? So that is one thing we have failed at miserably, and we are changing that right now. And also showing them what it's going to take to make the money they want to make. And we do mainly phone sales. So how many dials are they going to have to make? How many process calls are they going to have to make based on their average assignment or average deal we have here? Okay. And then we can show them that and hold them accountable to them. It really goes well. So that's one thing we've got to do a good job on. Next thing is when you hire them and onboard them and they're starting to perform, you have to consistently meet with them at least every 2 weeks. That is a mid-month check-in and an end-of-month check-in. Hey, what are we doing? How are things going? Make sure you're reviewing calls with them. And on top of that, you should be having sales training every week, 3 to 4 days a week, making sure that they are learning and always on top of their game. Michael Jordan practiced 6 days a week or 7 days a week. Kobe Bryant, I don't know anyone who is successful in life who doesn't have constant coaching. Why shouldn't your salespeople have constant coaching, right? So that is one thing that we have always lacked is the coaching and sales training, and it takes a lot of time and energy. But if you're not going to do that, you're setting up yourself to fail. Your salespeople are eventually going to fall out, and I don't want that to happen for you, and I don't want you to have to deal with that. We unfortunately just lost one of our best performers. And this is the next thing. We should have let him go a long time ago. He isn't a core value fit. He doesn't operate with integrity. He wasn't always a team player. And he just didn't do the job, didn't perform the basics, right? And that's not to say that we all operate perfect as a team player, your integrity 100% of the time. But what we do is when we make the mistake and someone tells us we made a mistake, we learn very quickly. This guy was doing the same thing over and over. And unfortunately, we should have saw it coming because he was doing the same things to his significant other, right? And so whatever they're doing to their significant others that's unethical or not correct, it's going to happen at work, right? Especially if that other person is more important than work, right? And in this case, it definitely was. And what we saw was when we stopped coaching this guy and working with him, his decline stopped. The last time we coached him was his best month by far. He did, I think it was $230,000 in September or something like that. And then from there on out, the only reason he hit company minimums is because we helped him close his deals, held him accountable, like babysat him, I guess I should say, not even held him accountable. And then we had people leave and he took over those deals. If you take all of those out, all the deals, missed follow-ups that I closed for him or someone else on the staff closed for him, he is not a performer and he is gone. And we were too afraid to let someone go who was consistently doing 100K. And we were too afraid because because we thought he was good. He had the potential to be amazing, by the way. But you can't be amazing if you're selfish, you're not a team player, you're not always doing things with integrity, you're not growing, you're not trying to improve, all of those things. And he wasn't consistently doing those things. So what I want you guys to take away from that lesson that I had, because since he's left, we've done 5 contracts in 2 days. And it's because he wasn't calling people when he said he was going to. He wasn't doing the work. And I think if you were to ask him, he would tell you he spent 80% of his time on Instagram or Facebook, which is insane, right? With what we pay these guys and what they have the capability to make, if they just make the dials and the calls that they're supposed to, they will go so far. And that all comes down to me as a leader. I'm the sales manager and owner of this company. I didn't do a good job. I let it slide. I said, every time he would do something wrong at work, and I planned to have a talk with him, something outside of life would happen to him, and I just let it slide. We caught him going to leadership, asking for something, and then wouldn't get his answers and go somewhere else. And we didn't do a good enough job bringing that up and letting them know that we knew about it and it had to stop. So I can only hold myself accountable to that. We didn't have weekly training, right? He was doing 100K a month relatively consistently. With our lead, I do believe he should have been somewhere between 250 and 3. That's the disappointment, guys, by the way. And we didn't hold him accountable to that. We allowed him not to follow up with people. We allowed him not to bring the energy. That's 100% on me. I have to correct those things. I didn't show him what was positive on what he could produce here if he did bring his best energy, his best effort every day on a consistent basis. He lost track of the vision, right? And that's on me, right? As the owner, I didn't do a good enough job at that, and I'm really working on correcting that. And the last thing to touch on this is he had things going on outside of work, and we didn't do a good job of reeling that in and helping him solve his problems outside of work. I think as a sales manager, as an owner, as a business, that's really your goal in life as a boss or a leader, is to help your employees achieve what they want to achieve. And I failed miserably at that. When he started to have problems outside of work, I didn't hold him accountable and see what I could really do to the best of my ability. I didn't put my best foot forward, and I got to take accountability for that. And unfortunately for him, he didn't perform. And when we started to hold him to those standards, he left. And it should have never happened because I should have never let it get that far. He should have been gone a long time ago with the standards he was setting. But I also think if I would have caught the wind of, or done it, I caught wind of it pretty early as soon as it started happening. I just didn't do anything about it. If I would have done something about it in that moment, which was like 7-ish months ago, give or take, we wouldn't have had 6 months of tailwinds, 6 months of missed out deals. Like just going through his old deals, I think we're going to lock a little over 200K the first week he's gone, which really sucks. One, because all of my other employees here who get paid off of like the sales guys doing their job, operations, TC, all of those things. But more importantly, we let our sellers down. And if we're going to do that, why are we in this business? If we're not going to help them to the fullest of our ability, why are we in this business? So that's what I'm really disappointed in myself in, is I let these sellers down. And then two, I let employees down, including this individual salesperson, along with my employees who still work here on the upside, and they get bonus for hitting goals and stuff like that. And we missed a couple goals by less than $5,000, which would have paid those employees big raises. And I feel terrible that happened. So let that lesson be that you have to be continuously training your team, staying in touch with them, meeting with them, seeing what's going on inside and outside of work. And don't let the problems fester outside of work, because they will bleed into work. He openly admitted that his problems at work, his problems weren't here at work, they were outside of work, but we were going to hold him accountable to his actions that we could control in work. And he just didn't like that. And he didn't want to do that anymore. And that's okay. But I do think if we jumped on this earlier, this wouldn't have happened. So I want you guys to learn from that. The other thing is, make sure you're always teaching your salespeople the correct way to follow up. We text a lot. Have the ongoing conversations, how to get people to open up text. So many times I see a text go through, hey, I'm just following up with you. Holy cow. You sound like every other sales rep. If you want to set yourself apart, do things differently. And that is one of the biggest things you can learn to do, is text more efficiently and effectively. We use a whole bunch of dots. We send like a couple words, and then we send another couple words, and then another couple words. We break it up to let them know that they're talking to a human, and so they feel more comfortable opening up to us. It's not uncommon for us to send up like a spell house wrong or something like that, and then put an asterisk with it spelled correctly, so they know they're talking to a real person, and they're more apt to open up, right? And so that is one thing we've got to do a better job of training our team on. And then last but not least, just making sure you're around your team more often. Make sure you're doing team events every month. Don't let those things slide. No matter what's going on in your life as the business owner, or whether it's struggles in business, whatever, you still got to do those team events. And I'm not saying if things are really bad, you shouldn't do them. Hopefully you got a good team that's there. But when things are average or better, make sure you're always doing those team events to build that culture. And another thing is, so you don't lose a performing, or when you do lose that performing a rep, because it will eventually happen, always be filling that backlog. That's something we didn't do enough or a good enough job at, and that we're really working on onboarding. And so those are some tips on how to manage salespeople. Let me know any questions you have. Hit me up on Instagram, Real Estate Mike02, and I can't wait to have further conversations with you guys. Thank you for checking out the podcast. If you found any value on it, make sure you give us a 5-star review and let others know about it. Don't keep us a secret. Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the Properties for Profit podcast. I hope you found today's episode valuable. If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and share it with others who might benefit. Follow me on social media for more updates and tips. Until next time, keep turning properties into profits.